The state of hypnosis activates the opposite part of the nervous system that danger activates, right? One is sympathetic, one is parasympathetic. So to just be in the state of hypnosis is incredibly healing for the body. And if you live with chronic pain, more likely than not, your body hasn't truly settled for a very long time. That's happened in one session where I saw someone with an outbreak of Crohn's disease who was in extreme pain, and he went pain-free and into remission after one session.
Welcome to Beyond the Pain, the podcast that explores what it really takes to break free from chronic pain and reclaim your life. I'm your host, Lee Brandon, and someone who's spent over 2 decades helping people get to the root cause of pain that no one else could explain. Whether you're dealing with long-term back issues, joint pain, nerve discomfort, or mysterious symptoms that just won't go away, this show is here to help you go deeper. Because beyond the pain, there's clarity, strength, and power waiting for you. Each week, we'll uncover the physical, emotional, biochemical, and energetic causes of pain and how to transform them. Let's dive deep into this week's episode. Welcome back to Beyond the Pain, the podcast where we dig deep into the real root causes of pain and explore the many paths to healing. That's physically, emotionally, and mentally. But before we dive in, I just want to share something important. Some of you might be aware that after being hacked, my Facebook and Instagram accounts were permanently suspended, meaning I lost contact with thousands of followers and the main way I use to share information about this podcast and to market my business. So I'd really appreciate your help. If you could please leave me a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel, it will go a long way in helping me rebuild that community and continue sharing this important information. And if you previously followed me on Facebook or Instagram, you can refollow me. The new details are in the show notes below. I really thank you so much for your support. Now, with regards to today's episode, if you've ever struggled with persistent pain and felt like you've tried everything from medications and therapies to lifestyle changes and nothing's worked, this conversation is really going to open your eyes. My guest, Ethan Reisboard, knows exactly what that's like. After suffering for months with post-concussion syndrome, chronic migraines and eye dysfunction, he found himself at a dead end until he discovered the surprising power of hypnotherapy. In our conversation, Ethan shares his journey from chronic pain to full recovery, explains how hypnotherapy works on the subconscious mind, and reveals how it can help reprogram the body's pain response for lasting relief. We'll also explore why so many people stay stuck in pain patterns, how stress and the nervous system play a key role, and practical ways you can start calming your mind and body today. So if you're ready to see pain through a completely different lens, let's dive in. Ethan, welcome to Beyond the Pain. It's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to this. So Ethan, can you start by sharing a little bit about your journey, your struggles with post-concussion syndrome and migraines, and how that ultimately led you to become a hypnotherapist?
Yeah, for sure. So I got a very normal, basic, mild concussion. Nothing like traumatic brain injury, nothing that would be seen in an MRI or hospitalization. Okay. Um, and I've had them before, but this one I was completely unable to recover. And instead of going through the normal process of healing that's expected from a concussion, it stayed the same, got worse, stayed the same, got worse, ended up becoming a severe migraine issue and a severe dysfunction in the peripheral of my right eye that caused all of this chronic pain in my eye and my brain. And no reason why. I went through traditional doctors who all said your brain looks fine. I went through traditional and even advanced types of healing. I did a hyperbaric oxygen tank that they told me like this is going to be, and right. So all these tools that have helped people didn't help me. I became so depressed because my life was spent like 20 out of 24 hours in the dark. because it was all related to my eye and light sensitivity, right? So I called my hypnotherapist who helped me years earlier quit nicotine.
Mm.
And I just said, like, nothing about pain. I was like, I'm so depressed. Can you make me happier? Um, and in the first session, I explained to her what I was going through, my emotional state, and the outside world I was responding to. And she painted this very clear picture that my nervous system was a mess, and I was just simply unable to heal myself in the state that I was in. And I argued with her for 2 sessions, and the third session started. I said, "Okay, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry." Um, and we got into it. And from that point, healing was so quick, so one to the next to the next. I went back to occupational therapy, and that then worked, right? And what I learned in that moment was that I was living with a dysregulated nervous system. And my nervous system, being dysregulated, was not in a position to heal at all. I was still in that defensive fight flight state, right? And by getting myself out of there, I was able to facilitate healing that should have been taking place this whole time. Um, I couldn't go back. It was the life I was living caused it. My emotional state caused it. So I decided to do a complete 180 and just go completely forward with what feels best and what is best for me. Um, so I became a hypnotherapist, doing the tools that helped me help other people. I moved to Costa Rica, as we were talking about, um, to kind of be in an environment that facilitates what I need in life better than New York. Um, and I also went back to work at my sleepaway camp over the summer, which is my greatest joy in life. So I really went completely forward with healing, joy, and happiness. And
Mm.
now I'm here.
Mm. So that's what we call the hero's journey,
Hmm.
right? So you went through, a challenge that you had yourself. You found someone who could help you get through that process. And now you've taken that knowledge and now you're in a position where you can help others do the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I guess you haven't been a hypnotherapist too long. Is that correct?
Over 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When you're as old as me, 3 years isn't very long. So,
Sure.
so for those who might not be familiar, could you describe in your own words what exactly hypnotherapy is and
Yeah.
how does it work on the mind and the body?
Right. So hypnotherapy is a scientific process. That's number one. If I was a hypnotherapist in 1985, maybe it would be more of a hippie thing. But at this point in the world, I'm lucky enough to say that it is completely scientific proven. Um,
Mm,
what hypnotherapy does is it's able to guide you into a state that is so peaceful, relaxing, and safe. Safe is the big word, especially for pain. Um, and in that safe, so our brain, first of all, whether it's the nervous system or other defensive mechanisms we have, is constantly trying to protect us from unknowns and danger and potential things happening in our life, right? So the state of that, and that's why it's so hard to make changes on our own. Because even something as simple as I smoke cigarettes, I have cancer, I need to stop to be healthy, should be so linear, right? But the subconscious mind uses cigarettes to manage stress.
mm,
So it's actually scared to give that up, right? And have to learn something new. So that's essentially what happens normally. But in the state of hypnosis, we are so relaxed, so easeful, and so safe that we can bypass those defensive tendencies. And this is the place where you can actually implement change. Beyond that, um, the mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality in hypnosis. So, for someone who wants to regain strength and release pain, being able to visualize those things in hypnosis makes it significantly more effective to then do so in the real life when you need it.
mm. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I've been aware of hypnotherapy for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I've experienced hypnotherapy myself. One of the things that I always remember, it was back in around 2004, 2005, I read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief. And for those who haven't read the book, and if you haven't read it and you're interested in this podcast, you need to read it. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And he talks about how, in the first 7 years of life, our brainwave states are very low and slow, so that they are a meditative like state. And whatever's in our environment downloads into our subconscious mind.
Yes.
And obviously, once you get to the age 12, the brainwave state speeds up. And that's when we become more supposedly conscious, right? More
Yes.
alert, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But in those first 7 years, you don't really have the opportunity of discernment. You don't really, like, as an example, if you're born into a specific religion, let's say, you generally stay in that religion for the rest of your life.
Right.
Because that was what was downloaded into your subconscious in those early years. But the same thing, and this goes back to kind of what you were saying, let's say in early life, someone experienced pain of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And the response to pain was that you got more attention. Because now, let's say both of your parents were workers. Now your mother has to take a day off and spend all day with you to look after you.
Right.
And potentially take you to see other people, i.e., it could be medical doctors or other types of therapists. So now you're getting all this love and attention because you've had some kind of accident, let's say, but now you're in pain. And then you get into your 20s, your 30s and older. And the subconscious program that's running in the back of your mind is that when I experience pain, I get love and attention.
Right. We call that secondary gain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're an adult, let's say, and you're in pain, your subconscious is telling you, you don't want that pain to go away, because if that pain goes away, no one's going to love you. No one's going to give you any attention. And that runs without, the subconscious means you're not aware. Right. And so, there's lots of other examples, but obviously pain is the most relevant to this conversation. But, what Bruce Lipton suggests in the book is that there's multiple ways of rewriting that software. And one of them is hypnosis.
Yeah, for sure.
So, there are other forms of energy medicine, and I'm trained in a few of those. But it makes sense if you have a program that was ingrained in your mind through a hypnotic state, which the first 7 years of life are. Well, how do you rewrite that? Well, you go back to that hypnotic state.
Right. So these are all learned behaviors, right? So if you can learn it, you can unlearn it, or you can relearn something new. That's first and foremost. And another thing I want to say is the example you gave is a very clear story, and it's something I've seen for sure in my life. But it also doesn't have to be as deep rooted as that. Pain sends powerful signals that can even bypass. Like, you can go into hypnosis through overwhelm and through significant pain, right? That's why like PTSD, for example, an Army veteran developed these automatic subconscious fears, not as a child from ages 0 to 8, as an adult in a severely intense environment. So these are things that happen more commonly, and it can even happen more of a micro level of, I started getting back pain, right? And I identified it as a problem, and my consistent attention and resistance to it facilitates more and more and more pain, right? I think that's maybe more of a common story for a lot of people who experience pain, where it's just something happened a while ago and now I'm here and it won't stop, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's quite interesting, again, what you were saying, in a time of trauma, you can become in a meditative state. Well, that's actually one of the ways in which mind control actually happens as well. And
yeah.
And we had a good example of that back in 2020, and a lot of people unfortunately got mind controlled, but that's a whole nother episode.
Right. Well, just when I studied hypnotherapy, one of our classes was about politics and advertising. And it showed us, if you just watch, and this is a completely apolitical perspective I'm about to give, but if you watch a commercial on a disease or a medication or a vaccine, it goes through a process that is basically the same every time, which is visualization that's intense and anxiety inducing. And then it provides you a scientific doctrine and then a call to action, right? And those step 1 and A put you in an emotional state where you're willing to take in that information there. So
Mm,
yeah, it's something we see. We're being hypnotized constantly throughout life. And as advertising
mm.
becomes more successful, it's hypnotizing you every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it was David Icke that termed that problem, reaction, solution, those 3 steps.
Right. And so that is, I mean, problem, reaction, solution is what causes us pain. And it's also what's going to heal us from pain, right?
Mm,
When there's no space between problem, reaction, solution, it's our mind going automatically, right? And it's, I'm identifying something that's wrong. Pain is that signal to tell me there's something wrong. I still think something's wrong, so I'm going to keep feeling the pain, right? Where if we're able to create space, as I say, between the impulse and the action, right? Or between chaos and clarity, then you're able to go through a process that can relieve the pain, right? And then there's countless tools. I mean, I don't know if you know Dr. Alan Gordon, who
no.
studied with, he's from the tree of Dr. Richard Sarno, who was a really big founder of back pain.
Mm,
Um, so he has a tool, somatic tracking. And in my personal experience and now with clients, I've made it hypnotic somatic tracking, right? So there's all these different tools that you can then use to go in to manage that process and response, right? But
mm.
the key is creating space so you're not acting completely just on impulse.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Let me share Simon's story because I think a lot of gym goers and desk workers alike will get this. Simon was lifting heavy at the gym with poor form and it caught up with him. His back pain got so bad he couldn't sit, stand, or even concentrate at work. He felt stuck physically and mentally. After we assessed and rebuilt his foundation, Simon was not only pain-free but stronger than before. His back lifting, more productive at work, and more importantly, happier in his everyday life. If pain is affecting your workouts and your quality of life, don't wait. Download the Chronic Pain Breakthrough Blueprint today at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. Let's help you feel strong and capable again. So, there are a lot of people listening to this podcast who are living with chronic pain.
Yeah.
How does hypnotherapy specifically help someone break free from pain?
Yeah. So let's identify what pain is, right? It's a single
Mm,
signal of physical danger, right? Sometimes that's really good and helpful, and sometimes it's unnecessary. When your hand is on a stove and the stove is hot, it's good. Take your hand off the stove, right? That's the
mm,
clearest example of
yeah.
why we need pain, right? Some people are born without pain signals and their life expectancy is incredibly low, right?
Mm,
It's essential. Um, but human brains are very powerful and it gets a little confused, and we have begun to bring it to other aspects. So we will experience pain when the nervous system is perceiving danger. And in a lot of cases, that's not necessary. So
mm,
Dr. Alan Gordon, along with the team from Richard Sarno, studied back pain and herniated discs. And, if you have a herniated disc, it could cause pain, of course.
mm. I know
But
that from experience. Yeah.
right. But did you know that there's a large percentage of the human population that has a herniated disc and has never reported pain?
Yeah. 76%.
Right. So, and I'm never going to get my back looked at, because if they tell me I'm at 70, I know with my brain, I'm going to get the pain immediately. Right. But so there are people who live with herniated discs who have no idea because they don't have
Mm,
pain, because their brain and nervous system is not perceiving it as dangerous at all. Right. So
yeah.
that is the key. It's how do we work on those signals? And the state of hypnosis is an incredibly effective tool for that, because the state of hypnosis activates the opposite part of the nervous system that danger activates, right? One is sympathetic, one is parasympathetic. So to just be in the state of hypnosis is incredibly healing for the body. And if you live with chronic pain, more likely than not, your body hasn't truly settled for a very long time. So hypnosis objectively gets you into that state and it helps you train the body to do that. And then it's going to make it much more effective to practice all of these tools um, to relieve pain and to change our mindset, right? I'm sure if you have had pain and worked on it, you've learned things that could be done, but it's hard to implement, especially when you're in the thick of the pain, right? Well, practicing these tools in hypnosis makes it more applicable and easier to implement when you need it most. So it's really through regulating the nervous system and creating processes that become automatic for you to then regulate and turn off the pain signals when you need it.
So is it a case of basically going into the subconscious and using suggestive language to, for want of a better word, convince the person that the danger that their brain is receiving isn't really a danger? Is that kind of
Yes.
how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'd say is it's less of a convincing and more of a showing them, right?
Right.
Like, especially with pain and the nervous system, I can't say you are safe. And in fact, um, I will do idiomotor. I'll ask questions to the subconscious. I'll ask if they're able to identify safety on their own. And often they say no, right? So and in that case, I can't gaslight you into feeling safe, right?
Mm.
So then it's being able to find it on its own. So yeah, using hypnosis, using breath work, using tools like somatic tracking that I mentioned to be able to guide you into that state so you can find it yourself, so you can become familiar with it and have the evidence that you can get there aware of.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, when working, a specific session, let's say, is there like an average length of time that a session might last in your experience, or do they vary greatly from person to person?
The actual session is
Yeah.
always about an hour.
Okay. But then
50
obviously that.
minutes, 50 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes would be the range.
Okay.
But then how many sessions I see for someone
Yeah.
with pain varies completely. And I'll just give you a few examples. I mean, we're trying to create lasting changes, right? Someone who not just experiences life free of pain now, but can be free of pain 2 years from now in the face of a trigger, right? Because we're not going to live under rocks after this, right?
Mm.
Stressors in life continues. And
Yeah.
more likely than not, how we're handling life is affecting our pain, right? Um,
So is that almost like, again, this might not be the best phrase, but I think you'll understand what I mean, like coping strategies?
yeah, I mean, so there's a defense mechanism called sublimation, which is actually in terms of defense mechanisms, a good and effective one, which is essentially saying I'm not going to deal with this now, but I'll deal with it later. If it needs to come back, I'll deal with it later. And that is, I've never called it this working with someone with pain, but that's essentially what the process is. So as soon as the nervous system can let it go and say, okay, I'm safe enough to keep on keeping on, right? Then the signals become less prevalent and everything starts to settle. Um, so that's happened in one session where I saw someone with an outbreak of Crohn's disease who was in extreme pain, and he went pain-free and into remission after one session. Um, but these are all like people have been living with pain for their whole life. People's identity is tied to their pain,
Mm.
and people don't always come like Lee, this is your life and your field, so you're open to it, right? The
Mm.
psychosomatic portion.
Yeah.
It could take people, like for me, it took 2 sessions to break through that
Mm.
resistance, to accept it, right? Um, so my priority is creating lasting change, and that is definitely a more than one session
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, for sure. But something you mentioned, you've got ongoing life, you've got ongoing stress. There might be triggers in the future.
Right.
So what I was understanding was that through hypnosis, you can almost, this is where I was thinking of coping strategies. I don't know if that was the right term, but it's almost like, okay, so when you experience this trigger, here's a tool that you can use so that either the pain doesn't come back or it doesn't last very long. Is that
Yes.
kind of correct?
Yes. And that's a main part of what I do as a hypnotherapist, which is when we're done working together, you're like Batman and you have a tool belt filled with all these different things that you can do. Um, and you called it coping mechanisms. Perhaps another way to say it is like a sustainable response or a
Mm.
healthy response,
That's a
right?
better
Um,
term.
and whether we have pain because what we're perceiving outside is wrong or what we're perceiving inside is wrong, it's all a response. It's a perception and a response, right?
Mm.
So we are going to use hypnosis not to just make you feel better, but to give you easily applicable tools that you have in your life so you can process emotional pain, physical pain, whatever comes through your life.
Mm. Have you ever experienced, because I know that there are some people that just can't be hypnotized, if you come across that? Let's take a moment to talk about Billy. His story is one so many athletes and active people can relate to. Billy was a semi-pro rugby player plagued by recurring leg pain and groin issues for 3 years. No matter what he tried, massage, stretching, acupuncture, the pain kept coming back. He was stuck in a cycle of hope, flare up, and rest. We worked together during his off season to get to the root cause. Now Billy's halfway through his current season. He hasn't missed a single game. No pain, no flare-ups, just better speed, strength, and confidence. If you're fed up with short-term fixes, grab my free chronic pain breakthrough blueprint at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. Let's break the cycle and build something lasting.
So, kind of, not really. Everyone can be hypnotized. There's a perception that you have to be a certain type of person to be hypnotized. That only applies for stage hypnosis. A small percentage of the world can cluck like a chicken and bark like a dog, right? But everybody can be therapeutically hypnotized. Um, those who quote unquote can't are doing it to themselves. They are, white knuckling, resisting, questioning, thinking to themselves, this is stupid and this is not going to work, right?
Mm,
Hypnotherapy is not mind control. I can't hypnotize anyone to do things they don't want. And it's 100% a team effort. So it's not that someone can't be hypnotized, but it might take time for them to be willing to go on this journey. You know,
mm,
usually
mm.
paying for a session breaks through that resistance, right? Not many
Yeah,
people pay and then are like, I'm not going to go along
yeah,
with this.
yeah.
But I have seen people where it takes multiple weeks for them to get to a place where they're willing to do the work. And then
Mm,
they're shocked to see the results.
mm. And I guess also there's probably a degree of, someone's, they don't feel safe to go there. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's almost like
Yeah.
their subconscious is going, no, you don't want to do that because, if you're out of pain, no one's going to love you. So there's that subconscious resistance. They don't probably understand why there's a resistance, but there is. And that could be, someone's self-sabotaging. They might not turn up for a session, for instance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so I don't know if you've read the book The Power of Now by
Mm,
Eckhart Tolle. Yeah.
mm,
So Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. And something I've noticed in my healing journey and in those of my clients is that the pain body is lived with this control over you, right? It has a stranglehold over your life. And as you start to heal, you're moving away from that. Um, if the pain body was a person, it wouldn't like that, right? Because it's had control. But beyond, think about what we've talked about with the nervous system, where it wants to repeat the past, it wants to know what's going on. So
mm,
to partake in this paradigm shift in your life is actually a huge threat to your nervous system because you're now putting yourself in unknowns. It's like
mm,
walking through an alley in New York City. Could be fine, but people have gotten mugged, right? Or in England, in your case, right? Like people have gotten mugged, so we're going to be cautious,
mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So I know as you mentioned, you've personally gone through this process yourself. Can you describe the relief and the changes that you experienced yourself when you tried hypnotherapy?
Yeah, so it started subtle. Um, I mean, I believe that physical symptoms resolve itself after the emotional. So really what happens is we're first gonna, in regulating the nervous system, you're gonna feel more relaxed and more calm, maybe better emotionally. And as you start to live through that, like living life in that way and living life practicing the tools, then the body starts to, resolve itself. Um, so it's usually starts with relaxation, clarity, ease, and almost like you're starting to see a new path forward, right? Hope.
mm, mm.
And then from that, really once you have hope, it becomes exponential growth and change. If you have hope and you let go of resistance, I think anything is possible.
So would you say that was the key to your journey that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. And just repetition. I mean, this is not when we're talking about chronic pain, these are not things that are going to happen overnight. It
Mm,
is a process of we notice it and we have to tap in, identify it, and begin to desensitize ourselves to this experience, right?
mm,
And if you commit yourself to that, just like anything, you can become highly effective. But I tell all my clients, like, a football player, well, soccer. Well, for you, I was thinking American football, but I guess you're talking soccer. Either way, a professional athlete doesn't practice for 50 minutes once a week. They
mm.
dedicate their life to it and they develop muscle memory, right? And we have a muscle memory response for pain right now. We need to build a muscle memory response for relief.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one thing I was trying to think of earlier
Yeah.
was that I guess for some people, and as you alluded to as well earlier, for some people, pain can become their identity. And to go through the process, you're going to need to build a whole new you. And again, for people, that's a really scary experience to go through. And interestingly, I kind of experienced the opposite. So, I've played sport pretty much all my life. I've worked in health for nearly 30 years. So I've always, I guess, identified myself as this really kind of fit, healthy person. And then in 2013, I herniated my L4-5 and L5-S1 discs, had quite severe sciatica. I had a dropped foot. I couldn't walk. I could barely get
Yeah.
my underwear on, couldn't get shoes or socks on at all, couldn't sit.
Yeah. Similar to
Um,
my father.
and, I was walking down, I remember I was walking down, well, I say walking, that's a stretch. I was walking on one leg and dragging the other one. Because I couldn't sit down, so I couldn't drive. I couldn't get in a cab. Well, what I did do is I walked to the bus stop because what I was going to the hospital to get an MRI scan. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a quarter equina syndrome, and I guess I wanted to confirm that it was my L4-5 and L5-S1, which
Right.
I
So,
worked out from the symptoms.
right. And
But
so you just touched on a huge part of hypnotherapy, which is you have to rule out everything else,
mm,
right? So like go get your traditional medicine, find out what's going on, and then bring that information to hypnotherapy. I'm sorry to cut you
yeah,
off there, Lee.
no, it's fine. That's a good point. But I remember walking down my road where I was living in London at the time, and I remember thinking, will I ever lift weights again? Will I ever play tennis again? Will I even be able to go back to my job? Because, if
Yeah.
I'm doing manual therapy, for instance, you know,
Mhm.
and it really challenged my identity. And that was really scary. So I know what that's like. And just because, I guess it was the other way around for me compared to someone who's already in pain, regardless of which way you're looking at it, changing your identity is a scary thing to do. So, I completely understand people that are in pain that at the subconscious level, it's actually quite scary to not be in pain because you got so used to being in pain. That's who you've become.
Right. And even if you don't think like my identity is pain, like
Mm,
this is happening in a subconscious level,
yeah.
right? And even if it's not, I think identity has this like almost like a positive twist to it, like this is who I am, right? But it's tied to this fear response. It's scary to move away, right?
Mm,
Because your mind has prepared for a certain type of life. And more likely than not, when you live in chronic pain, you're closing in on the life that you're living, right? You're doing less, socializing less, working out less, right? So your threshold for or your threshold for discomfort has become very small, right? and now we're going and expanding out. That's so scary. It's objectively scary, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. But again, going back to your point, for someone who's in pain, you won't even realize that your identity will need to change
Right.
because it's at a subconscious level,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? Because I'm sure most people, all they're thinking about most of the time is the pain that they're in. You know, I'm not suggesting they're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have to change my identity if I'm no longer in pain."
Right.
It's just what's going on in the background in the software, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, I know, again, going back to Bruce Lipton's book, I believe, I mean, it's obviously a long time ago since I read it, but he kind of used the analogy that, and again, showing how long ago it was, he was saying that the subconscious mind is a little bit like a CD-ROM. And, you know, let's say you had, you know, an album on a CD,
Hmm.
and let's say, I don't know who's famous these days, Taylor Swift.
Yeah, she has a new album. She's always famous.
I think she's as far as I know, she's a singer. That's all I know. But let's say you had a Taylor Swift album on a CD-ROM, where it's not going to play, I don't know, Michael Jackson, right? It's going to play Taylor Swift. But if you've got a rewritable CD-ROM, you could write over Taylor Swift with Michael Jackson.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And our brain is like a rewritable CD-ROM.
Right. I mean, neuroplasticity is proven. Neuroplasticity is proven. And even things like epigenetics are now a modern study. And there is, to some extent, evidence of being able to have radical shifts in even things that we consider to be unchangeable. Right. So, yeah, it's an incredible place to be right now. I mean, 2025 has its own flaws, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but for a hypnotherapist, it's pretty good because the science is catching up to our industry.
Yeah,
Um,
it's funny that you mentioned epigenetics because that's another area that Bruce Lipton was very much into as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
So now
interesting.
so Joe Dispenza um,
Mm.
is. I mean, I read a bunch of books in my healing journey. That was one that really helped paint this picture of what we are capable of, um, and the science behind what we're capable of. Um, And I mean, people have different opinions on him, but one thing that he definitely does is he has a team of research. And as he goes town to town with his events, they research brain waves, heart rate variability, all this physiology of the people participating. Um, and they've done that for multiple years and now have incredible evidence of the changes that occur in a hypnotic state. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a moment for Connor's story because if you've been sidelined by injuries that just won't go away, you'll relate. Connor was a dedicated tennis player struggling with multiple injuries, knee pain, shoulder issues, and a bad back. He couldn't play properly and it was crushing his confidence on court. After we put a plan together, tailored to his needs, Connor was pain-free in just 7 weeks. His movement improved, his strength returned, and he hasn't looked back since. If you feel like injuries are getting in the way of doing what you love, download my chronic pain breakthrough blueprint at www.bodycheck.co.uk/free pain guide. You deserve to perform at your best without the setbacks. So, what would you say are some of the most powerful client stories that you've seen where hypnotherapy has helped someone overcome pain?
Yeah. So, I mean, the quickest was I met someone here in Costa Rica in the market. It was the Crohn's disease person who was like at this intense point. And honestly, when you're at that elevated state, it's really hard to make change. Um, and I worked with him once, literally once, and he went into remission. That's really, really incredible. Uh, so I have recently been working with someone who had a nose surgery for what's it called when you can't breathe properly? Um,
Do you mean like a deviated septum?
that's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, all he did was get deviated septum surgery, very common,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it resulted in him having this like chronic burning pain started on the inside of his nose, and then after a couple years, it switched to the outside of his nose. He had experienced that for 3 years, and got in contact with me at the point of the most intense 3 months he'd ever had with it. Um, I worked with him, I think, 4 times, and after the fourth session, the pain went away. Um, and not just the pain, like these are incredible things, and I guess your listeners who are in pain want to hear that part, the pain goes away. But there's
Mm,
so much more. Like they are in this completely different emotional state. And in addition to his pain going away, he's sleeping better, he's processing things better at work. Like all of these other things are falling into place.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I hear people, that are in I say constant pain. It can, it can come and go and come and go, but on a regular basis, things that they often talk about is because of the pain, I can't sleep. Because of the pain, I've got, brain fog, and there's all these other things that come along
exactly.
with pain. So
Right.
it's not just the pain itself. Yes, pain is really important, but it comes with lots of other things as well. Or lack of energy, right? Pain takes a lot of energy out of the
Right.
system as well.
Yeah, I mean, Lee, the nervous system isn't meant to be running 24/7 in the way it does. Like if
Mm.
you look at an animal, like my cat who was just annoying us, right? If he hears a scary noise, he gets scared, and as soon as the noise ends, he stops,
Mm,
right? That's like the proper process of the nervous system in nature. No more danger, it turns off. But when we're living with chronic pain, we have these parts of us that are going constantly, that are draining our energy, and it's exhausting. And then
mm.
that makes it harder to recover because you're using like 25% of your energy on recovery, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this that will relate to that.
Yeah.
So there are so many different approaches to pain management out there. In your view, what makes hypnotherapy unique compared to other methods?
Yeah. So, first and foremost is non pharmacological, no medication needed. And number two, it's for lasting change. You're going to see a relief in your symptoms, but it's not for a one time thing. As I said, this all has to do with perceptions in the mind of what's safe and dangerous. And to create a shift in there means future response is going to be better. And the last part is hypnosis just makes it easier to learn things, right? I'm sure a lot of what we have discussed, Lee, your listeners might already know, but there's a big difference between what we know and what we can implement in our life, right? I say willpower is what we have until we need it most, and then it's gone, right? Um, so hypnotherapy makes these types of tools so much more effective. So it's not like you're just kind of forcing it to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm understanding from what you're saying there is it's not just about, helping the person remove that danger signal from their subconscious mind, but actually removing those sabotaging behaviors that means they're able to actually do the things in life they need to do to prevent pain coming back.
Exactly, exactly. It's like you take a pill and it blocks the danger signal, right? The pain signal, but the pain signal is still going. It's just stopped right here, right?
Mm,
We need to turn that part off, right? We need to
yeah,
fix the alarm,
yeah,
not just
yeah,
put headphones in so we don't hear the alarm going off,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Get to the root cause rather than treat the symptom because the pain is just a symptom, right? The pain is
Exactly.
just trying to communicate something to you. So you either turn the signal off or you actually listen. Okay, what's this trying to tell me?
Right. And if you don't listen, it's going to keep telling you the same thing. And that's why I was stuck in my chronic pain. And I imagine a lot of people experience the same thing.
Mm, yeah, for sure. So for someone new to this, are there any simple hypnotherapy or mindfulness techniques that they could start practicing at home, to begin calming their nervous system?
Yeah. Do I have a minute or two to teach it to your listeners?
What's that?
Do I have a couple minutes to teach it to
Sure.
your
Yeah,
listeners?
yeah, yeah.
All
Absolutely.
right. So the simplest thing I can do is just teach you a certain type of breathing technique. I know there's a million breathing techniques, but this is connecting to polyvagal theory and specifically to the nervous system. Um, Essentially, neuroscientists and doctors observed how we breathe in a state of panic, right? You can think of a little kid who you just said no to dessert and he starts hyperventilating, right? Well, that hyperventilating breath sends signals of danger, right? It's a physiological change of the fight flight
Mm.
response. If you breathe in the opposite way, that sends signals of peace and safety. And really, if you can breathe in this way, you are free of impending doom, right? Impending danger. And perhaps if you can breathe in this way and feel pain, then you might be safe, right? And then so what I'll say is you don't do this to feel better. You do this to give your body the opportunity to turn off the signals. Because if you're
Mm.
already safe, then the pain's redundant, right? So what I encourage you to do is close your eyes and begin to breathe normally. You'll start by just breathing normal and natural, but eventually you're going to shift to in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as we breathe out through the mouth, we want our breaths to become longer and slower, a complete exhale. And even longer. I don't want to give you dead air, right? Of just me blowing if you're just listening, but like a long, maybe an 8-second exhale. Really get rid of the breath of your lungs each time. And if you are good at visualizing, you can imagine you have a candle in front of your face. And if you breathe aggressively, the flame goes out. But I want the flame to flicker, right? So you're breathing so slow and gentle, the flame just flickers. So you can try that on your own for a bit. And once that becomes familiar, you'll bring your awareness to the inhale. And you can take a hand, put it at the base of your stomach, below your belly button, because you want to feel yourself breathing in completely. When we're in panic and anxiety, it's shallow breathing into our lungs and our chest. I want your stomach to fill with air. So every breath in, you feel your stomach rising with air deeply and completely. And then every breath out of the mouth, long and slow, longer and slower than the one before. It just helps to release, relax, and let go. And to breathe in this way, it shows that you're safe in your body. If you're safe in your body, you're free of danger. And if you're free of danger, then those signals that we interpret to be pain are redundant. And we've learned that we can live with this. And now we're learning that we're safe. So perhaps we can bring our awareness to what we have to do now and allow the pain to fade on its own. And so that's the very quick explanation of my breath work.
Mm. So how long would someone do that for?
Yeah, so this becomes your doctrine. Like that's your life. If you want to live with free of pain, this is
Mm.
something you can do constantly. You don't have to close your eyes for it. So when you're cooking, driving, showering, do it. It is way more effective if you practice it when you're feeling fine than if you're only trying to do it at the point where you're experiencing so much pain. Eventually, what will happen is you'll realize that your breathing has become this automatic thing. Where now, when I'm driving and I notice my mind going somewhere into a stress thought, I stop and I go into this breath, right? Because 4 years ago, I dedicated my life to this because I wanted to heal, right?
Mm.
So the good news is it's something you can do always, and it's very low key. And the more you can do it, the more effective it becomes.
Mm. As you said at the beginning of that, there's 1,000,001 ways to do breath work. I recently had Brooke McPoyle on the show, and she was talking about breath work, and I asked her the question, with the exhale, is it through the nostrils or through the mouth? And she said through the nostrils, and I got her to explain as to why. Why do you instruct people to breathe through the mouth rather than out through the nostrils?
Right. Well, firstly, because I'm not a neuroscientist and I didn't come up with it, and people smarter than us did. Um, but secondly, just try to have a complete exhale out of your nose. It's way more limiting, right? Really, what we're doing is we're releasing all of the stale air and we're taking in new air, right? That's not the intention, but if you analyze it, that's happening, right? And my exhale can be 3 times as long breathing out of my mouth. You can even do it like a snake sound that has like a therapeutic sense to it. I don't teach it like that because you can't be at work making that noise. People would be like, what's wrong with this guy? But I think the difference is the extent in which you can exhale completely out of the nose versus out of the mouth. And again, tomato, tomato. If you love your breath work, use that. But
Yeah.
I like this because it connects directly to the nervous system.
Yeah. I think, as you said, again, there's so many ways of doing breath work, and they're probably all effective, as long as they're not silly.
Just don't hyperventilate.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there might be certain advantages one way, certain advantages the other way. But yeah, as long as you're doing it, I think that's the important thing.
And doing it properly, like taking time to be there in the present moment.
Yeah.
Right. It's usually older men who have this, but like they have this belief that I'm going to do it 3 times and feel better. Right. Their attention isn't on it. They're not doing it right. And they're just thinking this leads to this. And that's, if you do anything in that mindset, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that Brooke mentioned in our interview was she recommends doing 4 breaths per minute for 4 minutes. And that is a really good way to kind of reset. Mm-hmm. But then, as you're saying, doing it once isn't really going to get the job done. It's something you've got to do on a regular basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to meet my clients where they are. So if you have a breathing technique, use it. But I like mine because I think it's very simple. You can do it while you're driving, and you don't have to count anything. It's just a long, slow exhale, complete inhale, right?
Yeah. So if anyone listening or watching this feels that hypnotherapy might be for them, what's the best first step that they can take to explore it safely and effectively?
For sure. So I offer free consultations to everybody to find out what you're going through and to give you a clear explanation of how hypnotherapy would work and what our plan of action would be. So you're welcome to reach out to me. My name is Ethan Reisboard, Reis, B as in boy, OAR, D as in David. And my website, ethanreis hypnotherapy.com, ETHANREIS hypnotherapy.com. And there you have all of my links on my blog and a way to contact me directly.
Awesome. And what's next for you, Ethan?
I got 2 clients later today. Just keep on keeping on, Hopefully when I'm done, the sun is still out and I can go to the beach. But nice. It is rainy season in Costa Rica, so there's a chance that it is insanity by the time I'm free.
It sounds like either way you'll get wet.
Yes. Well, I'll probably stay inside if it's pouring. But yes, exactly.
Awesome. Great stuff. Ethan, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation today, and just want to thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom with the audience.
Yeah, this was really cool. I mean, this is the thing I love most about my job. So just to nerd out about pain and the nervous system in the body, it was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So that's it from Ethan and me for this week. But be sure to tune in, same time, same place, next week on Beyond the Pain. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Pain. If this episode resonated, please follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone you know who's been struggling. And remember, pain is not permanent. With the right insight and support, you can turn it into power. Until next time, stay open, stay strong, and keep moving beyond the pain.